They told me the mountains have eyes. I thought it was just a metaphor for the locals watching outsiders. I was wrong. The mountains don't just watch. They taste. I can feel them under my skin now, moving through my veins like ivy. If you find this recording, don't go into Blackwood Hollow.
It's moving
She
faster.
doesn't want visitors. She only wants fertilizer.
Come on. Come on.
The locals in West Virginia call it the green silence. It's that moment in the deep woods when the birds stop singing, the crickets stop chirping, and the wind dies down completely. When the green silence hits, you aren't alone. My name is Elias Thorne. I'm a land surveyor for a development firm based in D.C. We were mapping out a route for a new pipeline cutting through the darker edges of the Appalachian foothills. It was a job. It was supposed to be just lines on a map, elevation grades, and soil samples. But the maps were wrong. On the third day, I found a valley that didn't exist on the satellite imaging. It was a deep, narrow gouge in the earth, choked with rhododendrons so thick they looked like tangled muscle fibers. In the center of that overgrown mess sat a cabin. It wasn't the romantic, rustic log cabin you see on postcards. This thing was a tumor made of wood. The logs were black with rot, sagging inward, and the roof was covered in thick, velvety moss that looked disturbingly like fur. I should have turned back. The air smelled metallic there, like copper and old blood. But I had a job to do. I set up my tripod and started taking measurements. That's when I saw her. She was standing at the edge of the tree line, perhaps 50 yards away. She wasn't a ghost. She was solid. A woman, impossibly old, her back bent into a permanent question mark. She wore a dress that looked like it was woven from burlap and dried gray hair. "Excuse me, ma'am," I called out, assuming she was a squatter. "This is private survey land." She didn't move. She didn't even blink. She just opened her mouth. From that distance, it looked like she was yawning, but the jaw kept dropping. It unhinged, stretching lower than humanly possible, revealing a black cavern devoid of teeth. A sound drifted across the clearing, not a scream, but a dry, clicking rattle, like stones grinding together deep underground. I blinked, and she was gone. Not faded away, just gone. I packed up my gear in record time, my heart hammering against my ribs. As I hiked back to my truck, the green silence descended. The woods felt heavy. Every step I took felt like the ground was grabbing at my boots, the mud stickier than before, pulling me down. That night, at the Motel 6 in the nearest town, I tried to rationalize it. Dehydration, stress, pareidolia, the mind seeing faces in random patterns. I fell into a restless sleep. I dreamed of roots, thick, pale roots burrowing through the drywall of my motel room, creeping over the bed sheets, entering my ears and nose, filling me with dirt. I woke up gasping. The room was empty, but when I went to the bathroom to splash water on my face, I froze. On the mirror, drawn in a mixture of mud and something dark and viscous, was a symbol, a circle
with 3 lines intersecting it. I checked the door. Locked. The chain was still on. The window was painted shut. No one had come in. Which meant whatever put that there was already inside with me. I drove back to the site the next day, not out of bravery, but out of a compulsion I couldn't explain. I felt a pull in my chest, a physical tug toward the hollow. When I arrived, the landscape had changed. The trees seemed closer together. The path I had cut yesterday was gone, overgrown with brambles that had thorns the size of fingers. I pushed through to the cabin. The door was open now. Inside, the floor was dirt, packed hard. The walls were lined with shelves, and on the shelves were jars. Hundreds of them. I stepped closer, shining my flashlight. They weren't filled with moonshine or pickles. The first jar contained a human finger suspended in amber liquid. The next, a pair of eyes. The third, a heart that was still twitching, beating sluggishly against the glass. "You bring nothing," a voice croaked from the shadows. I spun around.
She was there. The old woman. Up close, the horror of her was absolute. Her skin wasn't skin. It was bark, peeling and gray. Her eyes were clouded over with cataracts, so thick they looked like pearls. And the smell was of wet earth and rot. I didn't know, I stammered, backing away. "The soil is hungry," she whispered. Her voice sounded like dry leaves skittering on pavement. "You take from the mountain. You cut. You dig. You must give back." "I'm leaving," I said, my hand gripping the handle of my machete. "I'm leaving right now." She smiled. It was a terrible, wet sound. "The roots are already in you, boy." I turned and ran. I burst out of the cabin and sprinted into the woods. But the woods had changed. The trees weren't just standing there anymore. They were leaning. The branches whipped down, lashing at my face, tearing my clothes. I ran until my lungs burned, checking my GPS. The screen was glitching, the arrow spinning wildly. Thump, thump, thump. I heard it behind me. Heavy, wet footsteps. Not running, but loping. I risked a glance back. The woman was on all fours. Her limbs had elongated, snapping and popping as they stretched. Her fingers were digging into the earth, propelling her forward with the speed of a wolf. She was climbing over fallen logs, her head twisting 180 degrees to keep those pearl-white eyes locked on me. I screamed and scrambled up a ridge. I could see my truck in the distance, a beacon of safety. I slid down the embankment, gravel tearing up my hands. I hit the bottom and fumbled for my keys. Snap. A root thick as a python burst out of the ground and wrapped around my ankle. I slammed face first into the dirt. I kicked, screaming, slashing at the root with my machete. Black sap sprayed out, sizzling where it touched my skin. I looked up. She was standing over me. She had returned to her two-legged form, looming like a twisted totem pole. She didn't attack. She just knelt down, her face inches from mine. Her breath smelled of ancient, stagnant water. "A trade," she hissed. She reached out a hand. Her fingers were long, tipped with black claws, and touched my chest. Pain, blinding, white-hot pain. I felt something move from her hand into my rib cage. It felt like a seed, a cold, hard seed pushing between my ribs, burying itself in my lung. "Go," she said. The root around my ankle went limp. I didn't wait. I crawled to the truck, threw myself inside, and sped away, tearing the suspension as I hit the main road. I didn't stop until I was 2 states away.
That was 3 weeks ago. I quit my job. I moved to a city, thinking the concrete would protect me, thinking that if I stayed away from the soil, I'd be safe. But I've started coughing. At first it was just dust. Then it was dirt. Yesterday, I coughed up a petal. A dark purple petal from a flower that doesn't grow in the city. I went to the doctor today for an x-ray. The radiologist came out white as a sheet. He asked me if I had swallowed any foreign objects. I asked to see the scan. My left lung isn't a lung anymore. It's a root system. The seed she planted has bloomed. It's spreading, weaving through my ribs, wrapping around my heart. I can feel her. She's not in the woods anymore. She's in me. And she's waiting for the harvest. I'm looking at the mirror right now. There's a small bump moving under the skin of my cheek, pulsing. I'm gonna cut it out. I have the knife ready. Wait. The bump just stopped moving. And from the back of my throat, I can taste the dirt again. My mouth is filling up with soil. I can't.
This audio log was found on a pristine iPhone 15, discovered inside the hollow of a 300-year-old oak tree that had been struck by lightning. The body of the owner was never found, but the tree's roots were reportedly found wrapped around a human skeleton made entirely of wood.
You've seen their stories, but the darkness has only just begun.